Peruvian Prime Minister Mirta Vázquez suspended the plenary session of Congress to secure a vote of confidence for the new cabinet this Monday after being informed of the death of a parliamentarian. New revelations have come to light of the tax dodging of Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso, already under investigation over the Pandora Papers scandal. And the trial of 14 men, including Burkina Faso's former president, accused in the assassination of revolutionary leader Thomas Sankara 34 years ago, resumed at a military court this Monday. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Peruvian Prime Minister Mirta Vázquez suspended the plenary session of Congress to secure a vote of confidence for the new cabinet this Monday afternoon after being informed of the death of a parliamentarian. As Vázquez and the team of ministers nominated by President Pedro Castillo appear before the opposition-led Congress to explain their agenda and request support, news came of the death of Fernando Herrera Mamani, congressman of the Free Peru Party. A minute of silence was held while the debate and vote was postponed until Tuesday morning. There have been continuous opposition moves to destabilize the government of Pedro Castillo, which have led to several ministerial resignations and ultimately a cabinet reshuffle after less than 3 months in office, leading to another bid to secure Congress support for the government, with several posts filled by the more moderate figures, according to analysts.
Need to move in the same direction to build a society in which there are no second-class citizens based on ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, language or age, which is why one of the priorities of our cabinet is to strengthen social protection systems and lay the foundation for reforming political action and the civil service so as to create a truly efficient state.
On requesting a vote of confidence for her cabinet from the Peruvian Congress, Prime Minister Mirta Vázquez pointed out that guaranteeing the basic rights of Peruvians is the priority for the new government.
The basic rights of the people are our priority. To guarantee the welfare of each and every Peruvian is a long-pending task. That is why our government has the important and essential responsibility to do so on the historically excluded and most vulnerable citizens and addressing the structural causes of these problems.
In Guatemala, a tense calm reigns in the northeastern indigenous village of El Estor after the military was deployed to quash protests against a Swiss mining company. Hundreds of police and military personnel are deployed in the lakeside town, where they continue to frisk people at checkpoints following the violent repression of protesters over the weekend. The government imposed martial law and a dusk-to-dawn curfew on Sunday and filled the town of 20,000 residents with security forces. Teams carried out searches at homes and offices looking for protest leaders, while targets went into hiding. The police were deployed to prevent protesters from blocking trucks from entering and leaving a nickel processing plant, which shares the site with the disputed mine. The Phoenix mine, owned by Guatemala Nickel Company, a subsidiary of Switzerland's Solvay Investment Group, is under a court order to carry out a public consultation process in the community about the project, which local stress pollutes Lake Izabal. Now we address other topics. Nicaragua has begun immunizing children as young as 2 years old against COVID-19 using Cuban and Russian vaccines. The youngest children are receiving Cuba's Abdala and Soberana vaccines, while those between 18 and 29 years old of age are getting shots of Russia's Sputnik Light, a single-dose vaccine. Vice President Rosario Murillo highlighted that by midday on Monday, more than 29,500 children and over 43,000 young people had received the shots. Authorities plan to vaccinate 2.1 million children and adolescents and 1.4 million young people through over 1,000 health posts set up for immunization throughout the country.
We must not be afraid. We have always been vaccinated since we were little, and we weren't afraid. It's all about protecting ourselves and being healthy. That's the best thing we can do, taking care of our children. We are vaccinating our children who are the future of tomorrow. The vaccine is important because we see it. We are protecting them as well as ourselves. And we want our children to be well, to be healthy, to be happy. But for the good of our children, we have the opportunity, thanks to God and our commander.
And authorities in Chinese regions that have seen a resurgence of the novel coronavirus have adopted various preventative measures to contain outbreaks and also stop its spread. A total of 11 provincial-level regions have been affected by the latest COVID-19 resurgence over the past week, with sporadic cases of the virus on the rise. For the elderly who may have difficulties using smartphones, groups of volunteers and community workers have been offering help on site to get them digitally registered for COVID-19 tests. Beijing has activated a series of emergency response measures, including closing off residential compounds, suspending public gatherings, and carrying out mass testing in the neighborhoods identified as having reported cases. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. New revelations have come to light of the tax dodging of Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso, already under investigation over the Pandora Papers scandal. According to an exclusive by Spanish online newspaper, Público, different documents indicate that one of President Guillermo Lasso's sons bought a luxurious yacht in the United States through a shell company in February this year, when Lasso was in the midst of the electoral campaign. According to the allegations, the yacht was valued at $560,000 US. Meanwhile, this Monday, the Union for Hope political coalition released new information regarding the Pandora Papers scandal, which will prove that President Guillermo Lasso lied in order to become a presidential candidate. According to the latest allegations, in September 2020, Lasso transferred his shares in the company Pietro Overseas to his children through a new offshore company called Benizi International Foundation, a move not registered until October. This means that Lasso, who registered his candidacy for president one more month, before was violating the ethical pact because he still owned shares at the time. In Bolivia, the survivors and relatives of victims of the Sankara and Sankara massacres arrived in La Paz on Monday after a week-long march across the country to demand justice for the crimes committed during the 2019 coup against the Evo Morales government. The protesters set off from the town of Caracollo in the department of Oruro and walked 190 kilometers to reach the capital and reiterate their call for all of those linked to the coup violence to be prosecuted for their crimes. On Saturday, the victims' families and survivors presented the government with a document comprised of 22 demands, which are said to be reviewed and responded to in an audience presided by Bolivian head of state, President Luis Arce Catacora. The Sacaba and Sankara massacres resulted in the deaths of at least 37 people, while some 500 were injured. The de facto regime of Janine Áñez also tortured and detained over 1,000 political prisoners. In a briefing to the Foreign Press Association ahead of the U.S. appeal to extradite WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, his partner Stella Morris warned that he was looking very unwell. On Wednesday, the U.S. government begins a two-day hearing to secure Assange's extradition to face trial for publishing military secrets, after a British judge blocked a request earlier this year on the grounds that the WikiLeaks founder was a suicide risk. The U.S. government is arguing that the judge didn't appreciate the weight of expert evidence that said he was not at risk of taking his own life, despite the reports of his deteriorating mental health, as shown by evidence presented by psychiatric expert Michael Kolpman. Despite his extradition being blocked, Assange was being refused bail pending on the outcome of the appeal over fears he will abscond, and continues to be held at London's high-security Belmarsh prison.
So he was looking very unwell, but you know there have been such important developments in the case over the past 3 months, I'd say, that we both hope that this will be the end of it. The process could be very fast, and it could be also taking years. Both prospects are terrifying. Julian technically could be extradited, you know, by the summer. Kristen was saying, I mean, the big picture here is, can the UK really extradite a person to the country that was plotting to murder him? And that's inescapable. That's an inescapable point that you know, the courts will have to deal with ultimately.
In Italy, Interior Ministry of Monday has released a video of the Italian Coast Guard rescuing 339 migrants from a large fishing boat found off the coast of Calabria. According to a Coast Guard statement, the boat has sailed from Tobruk, a city in eastern Libya close to Egypt. The Italian Interior Ministry said that over 52,000 migrants have arrived in Italy in the previous 12 months, compared to roughly half that number by the same date in 2020. This year, 1,299 migrants have died or gone missing trying to reach Europe, according to data gathered by the UN High Commission for Refugees. Now we move on to other topics. The UN Weather Agency warned on Monday that greenhouse gas concentrations hit a new record high last year and increased at a faster rate than the annual average for the last decade. In a report, the World Meteorological Organization said that despite its slight decrease in emissions during the pandemic, the increasing rate of greenhouse gases continues. The news came as the United Nations Climate Office warned that the world remains off target for meeting his goal of cutting emissions as part of international efforts to curb global warming. The report also points to signs of a worrying new development. Parts of the Amazon rainforest have gone from being a carbon sink that sucks carbon dioxide from the air to a source of CO2 due to deforestation and reduced humidity in the region. The information comes ahead of the COP26 summit in the Scottish city of Glasgow, where the expectations of meeting the Paris Agreement targets are minimal.
We have again broken records in main greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. So far, we have heard lots of political support for enhanced ambition of mitigation, but the concrete pledges have still been missing. And at the moment, we are heading towards 2.5 to 3 degrees warming rather than 1.5 to 2 degrees. At the moment, we are in a position that we can make a choice what kind of future we would like to see from now on. And if we continue using the fossil resources in an unlimited way, we could reach about 4 degrees warming by the end of this century. And if we are successful with the mitigation, we could even limit the warming to comfortable 1.5 degrees level.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. The trial of 14 men, including Burkina Faso's former president, accused in the assassination of revolutionary leader Thomas Sankara 34 years ago, resumed at a military court this Monday. The murder of Sankara, a Pan-Africanist icon, has for years cast a shadow over the impoverished Sahel state, while calls for justice have intensified. Sankara and 12 others were shot dead by a hit squad on October 15, 1987, during a coup that brought Blaise Compaoré to power. The proceedings opened on October 11th and were adjourned at the request of the defense lawyers, who wanted more time to study the 20,000 items on the dossier. 12 of the 14 accused were in court on Monday. The trial resumed with the presentation of a list of 60 witnesses that the court wants to hear from, including by video link for those who were abroad. The Marxist-Leninist Sankara came to power in 1983, aged just 33. He tossed out the country's name of Upper Volta, a legacy of the French colonial era, and renamed it Burkina Faso, which means the land of honest men, and led to socialist agenda of nationalizations, while banning female genital mutilation and forced marriages.
If they can help with this, I think that why not to go to video conferencing? Because there are a lot of people who really want to be free of this problem. It's been 34 years. Some were 28 years old at the time. Today they are 62, 63 years old. They are retired. But as they are accused, there are some who really want to be free. I believe that there would even be a disturbance of the public order. The notion of disturbance of the peace has not been sufficiently discussed. But you can imagine that tomorrow the population learns that the defendants in this exceptional trial are free, and you can imagine the outcry that this will create. You can also imagine that they are let go, and since they have seen all the witnesses who were present today, the risk of pressure on the witnesses is possible. We are fortunate to have them in custody today, so they have to appear.
The United Nations Special Representative for Sudan called on the military to release those detained in Monday's coups, also and works towards a political transition. The comments came after the head of the Sovereign Council, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, announced the dissolution of the transitional government and declared a state of emergency following the arrest of the Prime Minister and other officials. At least 7 protesters were killed and over 100 wounded by soldiers as demonstrations broke out across the country.
I'm demanding from everybody to exercise utmost restraint. I'm calling on the military to release all those that were unlawfully detained today. And I'm asking all stakeholders to return to dialogue and restore the constitutional order, as well as not to put domestic peace and political transition at risk as UNITAMs. But what we know is that the army this morning has detained or first put under house arrest Prime Minister Hamdok, and then reportedly brought him and his wife to an unknown destination or unknown location after he reportedly refused to dissolve the government. That had been a demand from the military for a couple of days.
And the delegation of the UN Security Council visiting Niger says it is very actively concerned with the situation in the Sahel, which is facing atrocities by terrorist groups that are destabilizing the region. Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso, other Sahel countries, have been the scene for years of terrorism and community violence, which has left thousands of dead and displaced. The three-border zone between the 3 states has become a den of terrorist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. A new World Animal Rehabilitation Center is to be opened in Kyrgyzstan, in a region that at the beginning of the 1990s, the number of snow leopards decreased dramatically. Currently, 3 snow leopards have already been brought to the center and are able to walk freely across the landscape. Environmentalists express concern that one of the snow leopards could not survive in the wilderness because as a kitten got into poacher's iron trap, losing the lower part of her left paw.
With climate change, the glaciers rise and begin to melt. Subsequently, the glacier territory decreases. Thereby, the snow leopard's habitat becomes smaller and smaller. Maybe this is not immediately noticeable, but climate change will inevitably lead to such consequences.
Most of them animals came here through an ecological inspection agency or law enforcement. We cooperate with them closely. They know if there is a lonely wild animal, a confiscated one, or one that was kept illegally. They know our contacts and bring them to us. And also, of course, the citizens. If they have seen an injured animal, mostly it's a bird, they call us.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.